Far out in the uncharted backwaters of the unfashionable end of the western spiral arm of the galaxy lies a small, unregarded yellow sun. Orbiting this at a distance of roughly 92 million miles is an utterly insignificant little blue-green planet whose ape-descended life forms are so amazingly primitive that two of them think doing a podcast called Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea is a pretty neat idea. They are Jeff and Brian. Hi there, this is Jeff. I'm with my friend Brian, and this is our bonus episode.
Hey Jeff,
Brian,
how are you
doing today?
Wait,
how do we start if it's the second bonus episode? Why don't we just forget all that and go right to the comic book?
So here we are looking at the comic book. Book 3
Yes.
of Book 1. The trilogy of the first trilogy book.
And on the cover, what in the world could Arthur possibly be looking at that would merit that face?
I have no idea, but he appears to be quite frightened by it. Oh, you know what? Can you see the shadow? The shadow is a giant rat.
That's right. Look at that. With a little one.
I mean, it's a shadow, yeah, and there's the little guy in the background. So, is it Benji or
Frankie? Could
Frankie?
be.
Scared him that?
It might be.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to tell when you first look at it. You don't really... You see, like you say, you can see the one little rat behind Marvin, and then Arthur reacting, and now that we think about it, it's got to be the other little rat trying to say, "We want your brain." That's right. Or he's going to jump up on the table like in those 60s sitcoms.
Yes. So, of course, like the other two books, and I am sure every book after that, it's going to start with some sort of copyright page and publication information.
Mm-hmm.
It will also then do a brief listing of the creators. And in this book, nobody new is being introduced.
Okay.
And then they come to a full page where we get to see the whole group.
Yep.
Which is looking like it is from the end of the last book, isn't it? Because It's the dinosaurs.
Yeah. It's the dinosaurs, and Zaphod is definitely sitting on a chair of some sort. Arthur's leaning in through a doorway, but that kind of plays it to the idea that they're in the catalog there, I guess.
Yes, while they're waiting to be called to dinner.
Right. And there's Benji or Frankie sitting on the little table next to him.
Right.
They should wear badges so they know where they are.
Yes. And then we're going to get to the third part of the history, the ever-growing history.
Right.
Which talks about the publication of the first book, and then a double record album was released, and all the different radio episodes of how the book Restaurant was episodes 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5, and 6 of the radio series in that order.
Mm-hmm. Which I know we've commented about before.
Yes. And then it talks about the publication of the third Hitchhiker's book, Life, the Universe, and Everything. It says it was not based on anything that had been heard or seen on radio or television. It flatly contradicted episodes 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 of the radio series.
Uh-huh.
And then it says he went to America to write a screenplay, which was completely inconsistent with most of what had gone on so far. And because everything was delayed, he decided to write what he called his last book.
The fourth book.
And the fourth and last book in the trilogy.
Uh-huh.
And it said it effectively contradicted everything up to date, up to and including itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, we have gone through all of that.
Yes, we have.
So now we are going to start with the first page of the actual comic where they do the intelligence on Earth.
Ah, nice picture of a dolphin there.
Yes, a couple of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Swimming in space.
Yes. They're quite tricky, these dolphins. And again, we're told that the most intelligent beings were, of course, the pan-dimensional mice.
Correct.
And that humans were controlled by the experiments they did on mice.
While the humans were thinking they were doing the experiments. The mice were really doing the experiments.
Mm-hmm.
And so now when we last left the last comic book, Arthur had pushed the improbability button.
Right.
And the whale and petunias came and left. And I believe this is a double-page spread again.
Yep.
Of a fetchingly redesigned interior
mm-hmm.
of the Bridge of the Heart of Gold.
Mm-hmm. And this time, Zaphod has blue headbands.
Yes, that's right.
He has 2 drinks in 2 of his right hands.
Yes.
And unlike the previous descriptions of fetchingly redesigned, this is, I don't know, something between a garden and a jungle. I'm not sure
yes,
which.
pretty much.
It's quite chaotic, if you ask me.
Ford is sitting on a spiral staircase that appears to go nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Holding onto a handrail, which only seems to be holding him in place.
Yes. Yeah. While the handrail goes off the top of the screen, otherwise I'd believe that Ford was the one keeping the handrail there.
Yeah, you're right. It's quite bizarre.
Arthur's on the ground by a flamingo and a cactus.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. In that any of it makes sense, right?
Right. And of course, Zaphod then congratulates Arthur on a bit of good thinking. And Arthur says it was nothing really. And so he's like, oh, forget it. And then that was it. He's like, wait, huh?
Yes, he's back to looking like the reluctant hero here rather than the Superman character. And the art style is slightly different, it appears. You know, it's a little more, like I said, chaotic.
Yes.
Than the first 2 books. It's interesting.
And it looks like they're going to leave the ship, and they're deciding whether or not they're going to take Marvin, and they decided that they will.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's something, I guess, that was done well in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how they did it exactly in the book. But here it says, are we taking that manically depressed robot with us?
Mm-hmm.
And Zaphod says, oh, Marvin, the paranoid android? Yeah, we'll take him. And then on the next page, Marvin says, you think you've got problems. What are you supposed to do if you are a manically depressed robot? But that comment doesn't go with the previous comments.
No.
But I believe it worked better in the book.
Right.
In the book, there's an extra line that they cut out of the comic, which ties it all together.
Okay.
They still say, are we taking this robot?
Mm-hmm.
Zaphod still says, oh, the paranoid android? Yeah, we'll take him. But then Ford asks, what are we supposed to do with a manically depressed robot? Then Marvin says, you think you've got problems. What are you supposed to do if you are a manically depressed robot? But without the line, what are we supposed to do with it? It ties it together, but the line got chopped out of the comic, which makes it a little bit like, why would he say that?
Yeah.
Now we know why he was going to say it, because there's supposed to be a line in there.
Yeah. It's a little clumsy because, especially since it transfers from one page to the next. I mean,
right,
here Ford actually says in the comic, "Are we taking that manically depressed robot with us?"
Yes.
Okay, so that's maybe the way it's supposed to fill in. You're right; it falls apart.
Right.
But then you know what I keep noticing here? Now, I clearly described on the double open page, the double page that we're just looking at, Zaphod is clearly wearing what looks like a blue headband. And then you turn the page, and now it's purple. with purple. Purple and black triangles.
Well, the black triangles are on the previous page.
Yes.
But it is blue.
Yeah.
But Yes, it is definitely changed color.
Yeah, it looks like a little less attention to detail by the time they got to the third book.
Yeah, right.
And they still got 6 more to go.
That's right. Yeah, the continuity editor took the day off. And they do introduce Eddie's emergency backup personality, where he's making sure that they're all snug and warm and no playing with any bug-eyed monsters. But they just let him out. There's no altercation that stops it.
Right, and they don't even make an issue of why he would try to find another personality for the computer, because they don't seem to be pissed off at it.
No.
Interesting.
So now they're on the surface of Magrathea.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the crater and a rib cage. And Zaphod has realized that at the bottom of the crater...
cracked open an underground passage?
So in the bottom of the crater, Zaphod has discovered the entrance to Magrathea, where no man has trod for 5 million years. And then Marvin does his life, loathe it or ignore it, you can't like it. And again, it's out of the blue.
Right.
There's something a little off from the book, I believe. At the beginning, Arthur is talking to Ford, telling him that this is the first time he stood on the surface of another alien world. And then he says, pity it's such a dump, though. He never had any problems with it. He was just absolutely overjoyed.
He was.
That this was the first time he was on an alien planet.
Right.
Other people were saying it's a dump, but he didn't care. It was the first time he's ever been on an alien planet.
Right.
And then I'm going to show you a card, which is another view of the whale and its carcass in a crater.
Oh, boy. Well, that's a new tale to tell.
Yes, it is. It's just a fluke.
Hey, that was too close to a pun. Even you aren't allowed to do that, right?
Well, I was thinking about it today, and I really feel like a hypocrite because so many of our openings and titles of our podcast episodes could be considered puns.
Well, there you go. Now, we could argue that they're wordplay.
Yes, I would say that, because puns, to me, use different words in place of other words. They don't use, like saying it's a fluke.
Right.
Well, it's the right word.
Right.
So I do consider them wordplay.
Right.
More than puns.
So that everybody can understand, the card is mostly the tail of the whale sticking out of the crater with the group standing under the shadow.
Yes, the tail is the only thing that survived intact. Everything else is obliterated.
Hopefully they're going to see this stuff on YouTube.
Yes, I hope they do. So now they're climbing into the planet.
Yes.
And there's all kinds of debris blocking the entrance.
And Zaphod is kind of clawing his way down through it.
Right. And he's assuring everybody that the population doesn't exist. It's just nil plus the 4 of them. But he wants Arthur to stay back with the robot and guard the entrance.
Ulterior motive much?
Yeah.
Isn't this where Marvin has his famous line?
Yes, I believe that is because they're going to have a miserable time. And he says, don't worry, they will. And then the next page is Trillian has found strange symbols on the wall. And asks Zaphod if he had any idea what these strange symbols are.
And Zaphod, of course, says, yeah, they're strange symbols of some kind.
Right.
Typical. And here on this page, Ford interrogates Zaphod a little bit about, how did he decide to come here? And Zaphod's talking about stealing the ship, and he was going to go visit lots of places. And Ford says, where? And he says, I don't know.
Right. Are you crazy?
Yeah, it's a possibility I hadn't ruled out.
Right. Oh, and then they get gassed.
Right.
But Arthur's there.
I know. Isn't that funny? I just noticed that too. Arthur's face is in the background there. I
Or
think.
is that can't be Trillian.
No, it doesn't look like Trillian.
But if, like in the previous panel, it's Ford, Zaphod, and Trillian.
Right.
So I believe if you look at the hair, look at the long hair coming.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, your face is quite distorted, so it could be.
Yeah, that's a real shame though, because she looks just like Arthur.
Yep.
So anyway, Ford, Zaphod, and Trillian all get gassed. And then the guide talks, kind of a non sequitur.
So we get another pastel page.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it says that the Hitchhiker's Guide is edited in a way that seemed like it was a good idea at the time, and they go off on a non sequitur of Vit Vujigig and the Byros and the Byro planet, and it's just complete tangent from what's going on in the story.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's true to the book,
Right.
but I've never really quite understood the significance of this, but they felt it was necessary to include here.
Well, right. I mean, the only thing that makes any sense is it talks about how unevenly edited the book is.
Correct.
So this is an example of uneven editing. They just stuck it in here.
Right. The next page goes on with more of the explanations.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful pictures of pens with legs and hands and arms.
Yes. And I don't know if this is intentional or not, but they talk about after Vit said he was living on this Byro planet, living the Byro good life and being a chauffeur for cheap green retractables.
Mm-hmm.
He was locked away and wrote a book and then sent into tax exile. And it looks like he's kind of in a straitjacket. And it's the third panel in the center.
Mm-hmm.
What does that remind you of?
The two guys dragging him off?
No, right after that.
Oh.
Don't you see the Star Trek badge?
Oh, where? Oh, yeah, I got it now. Oh, I'm sorry. I've just missed that completely. You're absolutely right. He looks, they do. They have him sitting there wrapped up in a straitjacket, and the background looks exactly like a Star Trek badge.
Like he's in the cone of light that is from the open doorway.
Right.
And he's blocking out most of one side and leaving more of the other, and it just looks like a Star Trek badge. And there are so many Star Trek references. I cannot believe they intentionally did that to look like Star Trek, but
I wouldn't put it past him.
Right, it's right there.
Yep. He does kind of look like Harcourt fit in mud.
Yes, right. Then I'm going to go to a prototype card. This was, I've got the card rotated, and the previous page, it's the bottom panel, but it's Vit Vujigig, or Zaphod. Zaphod, who found the planet, and taking all of his secondhand Byros, towing it behind his ship.
This is what it says in the bottom panel. Leaving us to ponder both the mysterious 60,000 Altarian dollars paid yearly into Zaphod's Bratisvogon bank account, and of course his highly profitable secondhand Byro business. The card there is a close-up picture of Zaphod with the trailing ship full of pens.
It
Used
is.
pens. If only used pens had value. I could make a fortune. Just cleaning out my office.
And on the next page, Arthur is watching the stars come out and the two suns sunset in the mountains of fire. And Marvin is
being his typical depressed self.
Yes, unimpressed.
And then Arthur storms off.
Yes, yeah, because he keeps saying that we only have one son from Earth, where I'm from. And he's like, I know.
Going on about it. On and
Yeah.
on and on. I think you brought it up once, right?
Right, yes. And then on the next page, while Arthur's on his walk, he runs into somebody.
Mm-hmm.
His name is not important, though.
No, it is not.
No.
Don't be alarmed. I will not hurt you.
But you shot missiles at us.
Just an ancient automatic system. I think they take the occasional pot shot just to relieve the monotony.
Pot shot. This is where he finds out that they are sleeping through the economic recession.
Mm-hmm. Another panel devoted to our friend. He hasn't even said his name yet, has he?
No. But this page is basically Reese having this new unnamed person explaining to Arthur what we were already explained in the history of Magrathea.
Right.
How they're sleeping through the recession and nobody could afford. And then the guy who won't say who he is asks Arthur his name because he wants to do a threat.
Right. But I love how he always calls him Dent Arthur Dent, because that's the way, of course, Arthur announces himself.
Yes. Him and James Bond.
Yes.
And now they are in some sort of a flying sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the shoe on the ground in the background.
Yep. Definitely looks like that shoe.
And they are being revived from their 5 million year slumber.
And then he asks him his name, Slarty Bartfast.
And he's a little bit shocked at that. And that's when he was told, I said it wasn't important.
Talks about the space being in hyperspace, where they're about to go through the factory floor.
Yes. And the entrance through this tract of hyperspace might disturb you. It scares the willies out of me.
Oh my gosh.
And then we're going to come up to a character card for Slarty Bartfast.
Interesting.
So here he's holding a copy of the Earth.
At least from my perspective, my screen's just a slightly bit blurry. He looks like Jesus here.
Yes, I was going to make some sort of comment that he's got this globe and rays behind him.
Mm-hmm. Although his face is purple.
Right. Well, it was a cold night, remember?
Oh, very cold. Oh, that's funny.
So they're going to make it to the factory floor. And the Earth is being put together like a puzzle box.
Mm-hmm.
Or actually, a planet. I don't know if that's the Earth.
Yeah, it is. Because if you look up at the right-hand side, you can see the boot of Italy.
Ah, yes.
And the
Okay, so that is the
Mediterranean.
Earth.
And then England.
Right.
It's funny because, us North Americans, we don't imagine the Earth from this exact angle.
No. How do you cut us out?
Yeah, we're over on the other side, guys.
Yeah. And here it's called the Earth Mark II, made from the original blueprints.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where Arthur finds out that they originally made the Earth.
Right. Yes, he says, I was most upset about the year of its destruction. And Arthur screams, you were upset.
Right. Oh, and here's where we learn that 5 minutes later, it wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
And the mice were furious.
Yes, and then Arthur says, and so were the cats and dogs and duck-billed platypuses, I expect.
Right. Yeah, but they didn't pay for it.
Oh my gosh.
And so Arthur says, would it save a lot of time if I just went mad now?
And then Slarty says here that he's going to build another one.
Right. And then Arthur is asking him if there's talking about the little white furry things with cheese fixation and women standing on tables screaming in early 60s sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, Earthman, it's hard to follow your mode of speech. I've been asleep inside Macrothea for 5 million years and know little of these early 60s sitcoms of which you speak.
And I love your observation here. That means he knows something. But
that means he knows something, yes. That's not my observation. I read that pointed out somewhere and made me laugh.
Is that right?
So I had to share it, yeah.
Oh, here I thought you were
I
the
wish I
brilliant
could take
one.
credit. No. Oh, no, I'm not that smart.
Oh, gosh.
Talk about how these creatures you call mice are merely the protrusions into our dimension, and they are vast, hyper-intelligent, pan-dimensional beings. And that the business with the cheese and the squeaking is just a front.
And all along here, Arthur is following Slarty as he's moving through station to station.
Yes, he's going into the planet and through the halls and through doors. And Slarty says that the mice have been experimenting on them. And Arthur's like, oh, I see where you're getting the mistake. Or I see what you're getting wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And Arthur's the one who's getting it wrong.
Right.
And Slarty Bartfist gets to say how one has to admire their tests because how better to disguise the real nature and to guide your thinking by suddenly running around the maze the wrong way, eating the wrong bit of cheese, and unexpectedly dropping dead of myxomatosis. I'm glad they kept that part.
Yes. Funny words.
Yes.
And by this time, they're finally reaching into what looks like Slarty's office, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Oh my goodness, what a mess.
Yes. He apologizes for the mess.
Oh my gosh. He talks about the cleaning staff having been dead for 30,000 years and starts discussing deep thought.
Right, and he's got some sort of ring that he's going to give to Arthur and have him, here, hold these. So these sparking electrodes,
right.
He wants him to grab one in each hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then Arthur is all of a sudden at the day of the answer.
Right. It's funny. He's got him seated in what looks like a chair made of bones.
Yes.
Like some kind of a crawling creature that might have had wings or something. Very odd.
Yes. And then at the day of the answer, when he's in the sensotape record, he's just floating. He's still in the sitting position.
Yeah.
But there's no chair funny. And there's a crowd behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm going to go to the card that depicts the day of the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Which you can see Arthur still sitting in the crowd.
Yep. Oh my gosh, that's funny. I love it.
But it's a much more detailed crowd. Mm-hmm. I really like this image. I think it's fantastic. Yes.
People are all eagerly waiting for the answer. And then my two favorite characters in the book.
Not yet.
Oh, that's right. Not yet. These guys have names though, right?
Yes.
Yes.
They...
Not the ones that, yes, the later ones.
Right. Their names are Lunqual and Fook.
Fook. And here they're approaching what looks like a large, I don't know, cement building.
Oh, their names are here with the arrows.
Yes, they are.
Second panel. Yes.
Yep. And they're standing in front of waiting for an answer.
And they ask, do you have one?
Yes, I have.
There really is one?
There really is one.
To the great question of life, the universe, and everything?
Yes.
And are you ready to give it to us?
I am. So on the next panel, Deep Thought says, though I don't think you're going to like it.
It doesn't matter. Give it to us. We must know it now.
All right, but you're really not going to like it. The answer to the great question.
Yes?
Of life, the universe and everything
Yes.
is...
Yes.
Now we gotta turn the page. 42! It's a huge 42 floating above the huge crowd.
Giant 42.
Oh,
So
gosh.
this whole page is just 42. And a crowd. I mean, that's a crowd.
That's a crowd. That's a crowd.
And now here are the trading card, or here is the trading card for Lunqual and Fook. They got a giant question mark as an insignia.
Oh gosh, I love it. Yep, they look like Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
With
much.
the pointed shoes and baggy pants. Oh,
Right.
I love it.
And so then Lunqual and Fook say, 42? Is that all you've got to show for 7.5 million years' work?
Oh, I checked it very thoroughly, and it's definitely the answer. I think the problem is, to be quite honest with you, is that you've never actually known what the question is.
But it was the great question of life, the universe, and everything.
But what actually is it?
Well, you know, it's just everything.
Exactly. So once you do know what the question actually is, you'll know what the answer means.
Well, can't you just tell us the question?
The ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything? Tricky.
But can you do it?
No. But I will tell you who can. And all of this is in the purplish, scene here. And then for some reason, in the next panel, there's a Ford hanging from a tree.
Oh, yeah.
What the heck?
Ford was there. I have to believe it's a doppelganger.
Oh, I'm sure, but that's just too funny,
It is. Who? Tell us.
I speak of none but the computer that is to come after me, the computer I will design, one of such complexity that organic life itself shall form part of its operational matrix. You will take on new forms and go down into the computer to navigate its 10 million year program, and the computer shall be called the Earth.
What a dull name.
And Slarty says, end of tape, end of tape.
And that's the end of the tape.
End of tape 1.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny with Ford hanging from a tree.
Yeah, I didn't notice that before, but it certainly was. So now we jump back to Ford, Zaphod, and Trillian, who are waking up in the catalog room. And they are on the gold planet.
Right. Of course, Zaphod gets excited that it's gold, and Ford says, oh, it's just a catalog.
Yeah.
It's a sensotape.
You wake me up from my own perfectly good dream to show me somebody else's?
Oh, good grief. And then they show the dinosaur world.
Right.
As a panel, and then there's a cow world.
Right.
Giant cows. Oh my gosh, that's funny. I'm not sure what this last one was. Oh, it's just an advertising page where they said, whatever your taste, Magrathea can cater to you. We are not proud.
Right. And then all of a sudden it becomes like a doctor's office with all these diplomas on the wall, and somebody in a white coat says, the mice will see you now. And then...
back to Arthur and Slarty.
Not yet. We're going to do the medieval planet.
Oh, nice. Nice picture.
Yeah, so this is showing one of the possible planets that Magrathea has to offer. So there's a knight.
With dragons with sharp pointy tails.
Breathing fire and castles and damsels.
Ravening damsels and
yes,
fire-breathing dragons.
Right. And then There's the planet of fish.
Oh, occupied by cats.
Yeah.
Underwater cats.
Underwater cats. Licking their
Oh
lips
my
and
gosh.
looking at the schools of fish swimming by.
Mm-hmm. Very Mad Magazine-like.
And the cow planet. There's a bull looking at
Yes.
all the cows.
Uh-huh. He seems quite content.
Yeah. And then, of course, the planet of bad taste.
Oh my gosh.
Magrathea can cater to you. We are not proud. From beaches strewn with garishly colored precious stones, to the largest undulating red mountain, to the smallest vulgar silver tassel, Magrathea is there for you. Naked women on parachutes optional.
Oh my gosh. That's great. Those cards are something. The card makes Zaphod look like, what, Eddie Van Zandt or something?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Now we'll jump back to the comic book. So now Arthur is repeating back to Slarty what he just experienced about the Earth being built and him living on it and the Vogons destroying it 5 minutes before the program was completed. And there's bureaucracy for you.
Mm-hmm. Is that him at that bottom panel? Is Slarty holding his Perspex Award? I guess that's what that's supposed to be, right?
I think it is
Yep.
his Perspex Award.
For his coastline designing
Right.
of fjords.
Yes. But in this new Earth, they've given him Africa to work on, and he's going to do it all in fjords. But he's told it's not equatorial enough.
Oh my gosh.
So my question about that is, why would they change it? It's supposed to be the original Earth from the original blueprints.
Right.
Why would Africa have fjords, not Norway?
Well, because Slarty was given Africa instead of Norway.
Yeah, well, follow the blueprints.
Uh-huh.
And here is where Arthur is having trouble coping with everything and says he's having tremendous difficulty with his lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And we learn about careless talk costing lives.
Right. Now, here in this middle panel, it says, your arrival on this planet has caused much excitement and is being hailed as the third most improbable event in the history of the universe.
Yes. And it says, really? What were the first two?
Oh, probably just a coincidence.
Right.
So there's his voice going back into the eons of time.
All the way back in... Oh, and it's over and over. Yeah, you can see it falling. The same balloon is tumbling and tumbling.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
I don't see their bejeweled battle shorts.
No, they're below table level.
Yes, apparently. And they don't mention them.
They don't mention them, no.
But they definitely look like bug creatures.
Yes, the Gugvunt and the Vlahers are having their standoff at the negotiation table.
And then the insult drifts by.
Yeah, right
And
after
the
he
war
says,
continues.
"Are you going to take back what you said about my mother?" And a terrible war was waged for a few thousand years.
Mm-hmm.
Then their galaxy was decimated, and then they realized it was all a mistake.
And then they show all these ships being launched towards the offending planet, the Earth. And here we see an actual small dog.
Yes. Yes. Which looks giant at the beginning.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And then it's not.
Makes you wonder, though.
Oh, yeah.
I've always wondered about that, because, we know so much about life being created on the Earth, and we imagine all of the features and functions that are required to produce life. And then you see something like this and you wonder, is there a tiny little planet out there with tiny little people on it? I mean, is that possible, Do the physics of our world prevent that from happening? Or is it possible? I don't know. It's just one of those things that make me think.
Yeah, it's funny how his offhand jokes, one-liners, actually cause deep thought.
Yep.
So now I'm going to go to a couple character cards.
Cool. Oh my goodness, what is that?
The Vlahurg.
Oh my gosh. That's
extreme funny. Close-up of the Vlahurg.
Mm-hmm. Signed by the artist there.
Yes.
Is an extreme close-up.
Yes. Let's see. So what does it say about them? Because we get no explanation of them in any of the books or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the Vlahurg are noisy, reddish, unsettlingly robust, and one of the most frightening races in the galaxy. Never, never say to a Vlahurg, I seem to be having tremendous difficulty with my lifestyle. For in their tongue, it is the most dreadful insult imaginable.
Okay.
Here is a close-up of the Gugugvunt.
Oh, God. Oh.
They are dangerous, warlike,
yes.
extremely unpleasant looking. Lo, gaze in fear and wonder at the angular, vapor-shrouded forms of the mighty Gugugvunt race.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly surrounded by a thick cloud of green, sweet-smelling steam, these beings are sworn enemies of the equally unattractive Vlahurg race. And so,
back to the world of small dogs.
Yes. Arthur arrives at the dinner party where Zaphod, Trillian, and Ford are indulging themselves. And here's where they have the vegan rhino cutlet.
Oh my gosh. That's quite an assortment of food there. There's like a fish in under glass.
Yes.
Oh.
Zaphod is telling him how generous the hosts have been.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what hosts?
And he screams, ugh, there are mice on the table. And jumps up on a chair. Then he says, oh, sorry, I wasn't quite prepared for this.
Yeah. And then Trillian introduces him to Benji and Frankie Mouse, who, of course, talk in unison and say hi. And she says they're the mice that she brought with her from Earth. And Slarty Bartfast is excused and told to leave. Mm-hmm. And he said he's going to get on with some of his fjords.
And then the mice tell him they won't be necessary. We found a native of the planet who was there seconds before it was destroyed.
And he's told to take a skiing holiday.
And then they get down to business with Arthur.
To business. They didn't do it. They didn't toast.
Mm-hmm. There's still stuff in their faces.
Right. So here, there's the whole prospect of doing it all over again, giving them the screaming heebie-jeebies.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in the last panel, of course, Benji and Frankie are directly talking with Arthur, and they're saying, and by chance, Frankie and I left the planet for a quick holiday and have since manipulated our way back to Magrathea, which is the gateway back to our own dimension. See?
Yes.
So here again, that's where the book says that the mice were responsible for Zaphod and the trip.
Yep.
And they've been contracted by the 5D chat shows.
Right.
And they want to take the job. So they really need the question.
But they got to have some product. We need the ultimate question in some form or another. Mm-hmm. Something that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an ultimate question that sounds good from a couple of mice.
And they say, we want to buy it off you.
The question?
And everybody repeats in unison, yes!
For lots of money! Lots and lots of money! But nope. He is told, no, no, no. It's the brain we want to buy.
And Arthur screams, what?
And one of Zaphod's head is disgusted. The other one is smiling and winking.
And delighted.
And delighted. Ford and Trillian both look shocked.
Yes, Ford even says here, I thought you said you could read electronically. Oh, yes, but we have to get it out first and got to get it prepared and treated and diced.
Arthur's like, no, thank you.
You wouldn't miss it. We'd replace it.
By a simple electronic one.
Oh, and based on his life, it would seem simple enough, right?
Yes. And here is the card that depicts the we want to buy your brain. So it's the same type of thing with Arthur pushing himself back from the table.
Right.
And again, like in the book and in the comic book that we were looking at, the mice are in their little floating cups that they use to get around. And Arthur can't believe that they're going to replace his brain with a simple one.
All it has to do is say, what? And I don't understand. And where's the T? Who'd know the difference?
And he says, what?
See what I mean? That's Zaphod.
Yeah, and Zaphod gets chastised by Trillian.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur says he'd know the difference. And Ford says, no deal.
Right.
And one of the mice says, I rather think we have to have a deal, don't we?
Right. And at that bottom panel, there's a group of people charging into the room, masked up with lethal-looking weapons.
Yes.
And everybody seems to be pushing and shoving their way out of the room.
Right. And then there's emergency, hostile ship has landed on the planet. Armed intruders in Section 8A, defense stations.
And then Benji and Frankie are sitting down or falling down with their broken cups and say, damnation, all this fuss over 2 pounds of earthling brain. The only thing we can do now is fake a question, invent one that'll sound plausible.
How about what's yellow and dangerous?
No, good. Doesn't fit the answer.
Well, all right. What do you get if you multiply 6 by 7?
No. Too literal, too factual. It wouldn't sustain the punter's interests.
Here's a thought. How many roads must a man walk down?
That's it. It sounds very significant without actually tying you down to meaning anything at all.
Yeah, that'll fox 'em.
How many roads must a man walk down?
42.
Frankie,
Excellent.
baby, we got it made.
Elsewhere.
Now they're running through Magathea.
Trying to sneak out and get away.
A large armored man seems to be standing in the foreground here.
Yes.
And things are being kathumped and kawhopped.
Okay, Beeblebrox, hold it right there. We've got you covered.
Cops. You want to try a guess, Ford?
And they're like, okay, this way.
And some more thooms and kawhops.
Yes. Now here's the card for Zaphod or Beeblebrox. We've got you covered.
Oh, wow.
So this, I guess, is just the group of them, and it looks like these would be futuristic gun sights.
Mm-hmm. And I hate to be the one to mention it, but...
Well, no, you go ahead. They're right there in the sights.
Trillian seems to be rather well endowed here.
Yes. Yeah, Trillian went through a little metamorphosis.
As the French would say, she's got a lot of people on her balcony.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody else looks almost identical.
Yep.
Everything about Trillian is different.
Mm-hmm.
Her hair, her mouth, her eyes, her other eyes.
She looks like that actress that plays in The King of Queens. You know who I'm talking about?
Oh, Leah Remini? Leah Remini?
Yeah,
Leah
what her
Remini,
name
I
is?
believe. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
So more explosions are happening all around the group. And who's flying?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
It's funny, though. It looks like one of the characters from the Deep Thought scene, with the baggy pants and the pointed shoes and the little helmets they were wearing. I don't know. It must be a Magrathian, random Magrathian.
Yes, just got in the way. And of course, we know them as Shooty and Bang Bang. One of them says that we don't want to shoot you, and they're happy with that. And then they shoot, and they're like, "Hey, thought you said you didn't want to shoot us."
Oh, he said it wasn't easy being a cop. I love it.
Yeah, what's his problem? Ford says, "Hey, listen, we got enough problems of our own with you shooting at us, so if you could avoid laying your problems on us as well, I think we'd all find it easier to cope."
Now, see here, guy, you're not dealing with any dumb 2-bit trigger pumping morons with low hairlines, little piggy eyes, and no conversation. We're a couple of intelligent, caring guys that you'd probably like if you met us socially. I don't go around gratuitously shooting people and then bragging about it afterwards in seedy Space Ranger bars like some cops I could mention. I go around shooting people gratuitously, then I agonize about it afterwards for hours to my girlfriend.
Yeah, and I write novels. Though I haven't had any of them published yet, so I better warn you, I'm in a mean mood. he had to get something in there.
Ford goes, "Who are these guys?"
It's like, I don't know, but I preferred it when they were shooting.
I love this scene. So are you going to come quietly, or are you going to let us blast you out?
Which would you prefer?
Thwomp.
And then all hell breaks loose.
You still down there?
Yes, we're still here.
We didn't enjoy doing that at all.
Yeah, we could tell.
Now listen up, Beetlebrox, and listen good.
Why?
Because it's going to be very intelligent and quite interesting and humane. Either you all give yourselves up now and let us beat you up a bit, though not very much, of course, because we're firmly against needless violence, or we blow up this entire planet and possibly one or two others that we noticed along the way. Oh, man.
But that's crazy. You wouldn't do that.
Wouldn't we?
Oh, yes. We'd have to. No question.
Because there's some things you have to do, even if you are enlightened liberal cops who know all about sensitivity and everything.
I just don't believe these guys.
Shall we shoot them again for a bit?
Yeah, why not? And then more just shooting.
Oh my gosh.
And then it all kind of stops. And there's this
What happened?
They stopped shooting. Thud. Thud.
But what were those thuds?
Dunno. I'd better take a look. Isn't anyone going to say, "No, you can't. Let me go instead." So Ford climbs up there, and it's like, it's okay. They're dead. And they're just laying down and oozing and steaming, and green stuff is pouring out of their armor. Oh.
Mm. Then Ford points out that they're methane breathers and that their spacesuits were important for their survival. Their life support computer seems to have blown up.
Zaphod says, "Let's get shot out of this hole. If whatever I'm supposed to be looking for is here, I don't want it." Yeah, come on, Ford. Let's split. So Both of his heads are talking in this panel.
Yes, yes. And he blows a big hole in the wall. And then there's a lightning bolt split so they can tell the time has passed, and they return to the ship. And there they find Marvin.
And he's saying that he only has to talk to somebody and they begin to hate him. Even robots hate me.
Oh, and the Ford says, "You talk to them? What do you mean?"
Simple. I got bored and depressed, so I plugged myself into this external computer feed and explained it at great lengths, my view of the universe.
And what happened?
It committed suicide.
And Ford's just looking agog at the ship.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there's a picture of Arthur lying on a bed in the Heart of Gold from later that night.
And he's holding the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he's just going to start searching through it. And he sees the history of every major galactic civilization tend to pass through 3 distinct and recognizable phases.
The first phase is characterized by the question, how can we eat? The second by why do we eat? And the third by where shall we have lunch?
And then Zaphod calls, "Hey, Earthman, you hungry?"
And Arthur says, yeah, Zaphod, I'm a little peckish, I suppose.
He says, "Okay, baby, hold tight. We'll take in a quick bite at the restaurant at the end of the universe."
Yeah, that's funny, because here, the little added insert of later that night on board the Heart of Gold makes that make a tiny bit more sense.
Yes.
Because in the book, I don't recall that being mentioned, that it was later that night or anything. Because I always thought it was funny that they had just had this huge meal with the mice.
Right.
Got on the ship,
right.
And then Zaphod says, "Hey, let's go get something to eat."
Right. It is like immediate
Mm-hmm.
in the book and in the TV show and everything else. Yeah, you are right.
So, but in this comic book, they've cleared up that question.
Right. And then there's a little preview of the next trilogy coming out. That's going to be the restaurant at the end of the universe.
The parking garage at Millieways.
Yes.
And then they go on to the bios that they've had in each of the books about the different creators.
Yep, and like I mentioned, there's nobody new. All of these have been in the first 2.
Mm-hmm. The editors, etc., on the last page.
And then the back cover of the book.
Oh, that's funny.
It says The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Paper Edition. How large would that be according to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Gosh. Isn't it the Encyclopedia Galactica that they talk about made a ship or a world collapse into a black hole or something like that?
Pretty much, yes.
When they printed it out.
That's why it comes in this handy electronic version.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, what's next?
The second book in the series, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, has also been divided up into 3 comic issues. So we will be covering those next, with our main episode being the first issue, and 2 bonus episodes after that for issues 2 and 3.
Fantastic. I can't wait.
So now that everybody knows what's coming up next... So say goodnight,
Brian. Jeff.
Wait. Not this
again?
Thank you for listening to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. Look for us the first Thursday of every month for a full episode. We will also release a bonus episode later in the month. A very special thanks goes out to Luke, Max, Greg, and Tim Lesnick for arranging and performing our opening theme. We would also like to thank our talented friends and family for their voice work on our introductions and commercials. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com, where you can find links to all my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube as Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea, on Instagram as Watches Idea Podcast, and on Twitter at Watches Idea. If you'd like to contact us, our email is digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com.
This has been a Froods for Thought production.